So you're leaving the Thaiger?
Yes, I'm leaving the Thaiger.
Are you happy to leave? Well, hello there Internet, Pete here from Thairish Times. How's it going? What's the story? We're just back in Bangkok after a trip to Koh Chang where it rained for the whole holiday, which was very disappointing because we couldn't really go anywhere or do anything. We just stayed in a hotel pretty much and got rained on. Anyway, Tim Newton, founder of the Thaiger, which is a Thai English media company, which a lot of you already know. But what you probably don't know is that Tim, the founder, is actually leaving at the end of this month, July 2022. And why is he leaving? Well, we're going to find out in this interview. And just before we start, I want to plug two channels, two guys making fantastic content that deserve a little bit more exposure. We got Frank from Germany, and Frank went into the Thaiger offices about 2 weeks ago and made like a behind the scenes of the Thaiger. I'll leave that video in the description. Then we have Brendan O'Neill, a Canadian down in Phuket. He has his own podcast. He brings on really interesting guests. He's got a really good setup down there. I'll leave his channel in the description as well. And with a name like Brendan O'Neill, there must be an Irish connection in there as well, yeah? Anyway, without further ado, let's go meet Tim Newton and find out why he's leaving the Thaiger. So, Tim, how's it going?
Good. Thank you very much for asking me. Well, I sort of asked myself, really.
So what I want to do, Tim, is before we get into...
But we're in the Library of Congress or something, are we?
Yeah, this is
looks pretty swish.
A great little hidden place I found. I'm kind of like, do I really want to share the name? Because I feel like if I do, it'll just be packed full of people.
It is pretty packed with people already. But it's a very nice little space. Yeah. We're sort of in the code of silence in here. It sounds a bit echoey, but thank you.
So let's do a little bit of a kind of a deep dive into the background of Tim Newton. Okay, so tell us, which part of Australia are you from?
Melbourne, down south, specifically the Mornington Peninsula, which is a very nice sort of holiday weekend type area where people would go and have a holiday house. Over the years I grew up there, it became more and more popular and more permanent residents. But I had a great childhood sort of going to the beach, sailing boats, and having a great young Australian upbringing. Very privileged.
And you spent 43 years working in media.
Pretty much, yeah. I started when I was 20 and here I am still doing it.
How did you get into it?
I fell into it and I got a job doing promotions at a radio station, 3AW in Melbourne. And one day they asked me to go down into the studio to help the producers because they had one of the producers was away. And so I was doing some production work and putting calls through to the on-air personality. It was a talk station. Then I got a job producing an on-air talk show, and one night the host during the program, he just disappeared underneath the panel and he just fainted. As it happened, he'd had a stroke. So I was the only other person in the whole room, in the whole building. It was like 10 o'clock at night. So I ran into the studio and pressed the button and went, oh look, we seem to have a bit of a problem here. And that started my radio career because he was away for 3 months. I had to fill in. And I'd never done a day of radio in my life. Never had any intention to do it. I never had any intention of running a media company in Thailand. But so it's those roads less travelled, it's those crossroads that you sort of come to them and go, oh, okay, we'll go down here. So that's how it happened. I just fell into radio, fell into the media.
And how did you end up coming over here to Thailand?
It was the cold weather in Melbourne. Melbourne has got spectacular summers and springs and autumns, but a turgid, horrible, cold winter. It doesn't like rain, it just drizzles. And it doesn't get cold enough to have snow or something fun, it just gets cold enough to be cold and unpleasant. So I'm never going to do another winter here, and I didn't. Also, I had a business that sort of went wrong, and it was just the time for me to go and start another adventure. So I thought, I'm going to go and live on a beach somewhere. And so I moved to Phuket. The day after I arrived, I got a job at 89.5 FM in Phuket. Spent 4 years with Class Act Media, learning the ins and outs of Thai media. and then went out and started the Thaiger. So things fell into my lap in a way. I was quite lucky.
You bought the Phuket Gazette, you and a group of investors, right?
Sure. Well, you've done your research, haven't you? I started the Thaiger by myself. It was just a radio station in Phuket, a 102.75 FM. And that was going quite well. And then after about 18 months, some people I'd met who were running a real estate company in Phuket, they decided to buy the remnants of the Phuket Gazette, the digital part. All they wanted was the email lists. So they thought, oh gee, we've got this media company now. Well, that Tim Newton guy, I think he knows something about media. Maybe we'll get him involved. So we shook hands, 50-50, and off we went. And here I am still working with them 4 years later. The Thaiger grew out of the remnants or the leftovers of the Phuket Gazette, which was a very powerful, very good local newspaper in Phuket for 23 years. So all that media, all those stories that are online, about 20 years of online stories, are a fantastic archive of that last 20 years history of Phuket, which is like when everything sort of happened on the island. So that's all sitting there on the Thaiger website to this day.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how has the Thaiger evolved from the very beginning to what it is today? Because media today is completely different than, say, 5 years ago.
Pete, this is a really good point, because I think the strength of the Thaiger has been that we've been able to try things, risk, spend a bit of money if we had to, make the mistakes quickly and early, throw it under the bus and try something else, and continually do that. And we've been doing that for 4 years, such that there's no such thing as a Phuket FM radio station anymore. It's an online media channel, a YouTube, Facebook, and increasingly e-commerce. So the whole platform has transformed and evolved. But it was done, we sit down, we consider things, we have a look at the trends, what are other people doing, what's working, what's not, try and adapt things. That was a very continuous process. And I think the people that have succeeded in the media in the past 10 years are the ones that have been willing to rip up what they knew and try something. Luckily, even though I'm by far the oldest person at the Thaiger these days, I was of a mindset where I'd give things a go. And I think you need to be very flexible. Don't have any ego. You've got to let the ego go. Just because you like an idea or like a project doesn't mean it's going to work. Look at the numbers, look at the data, decide what's working, what's not, and just get on with it. And sometimes that can upset people, it can upset yourself, it can upset your ego, but that's the only way to do it these days. You've got to be brutal, and you've got to just keep on reading, looking ahead, what are the winners doing, learn from their mistakes and learn from their successes.
Has that been the key to your success at the Thaiger?
Probably, yeah. I mean, the Thaiger, I think, probably about 2 years ago, we sat down one day and looked at the numbers and thought, oh my God, this has been a spectacular success, numbers-wise. When we took over the Phuket Gazette, it was getting about 200,000 clicks a month. 2 years ago, we were getting about 10 million clicks a month. And the platform had grown enormously, our support base. We were starting to infiltrate into YouTube and the other social media. But really, the platform was the news, people coming back every day to see what was happening. So that was the core of the business, and sort of to this day remains the core. The job now is to try and monetize that better. And the board, about 6 months ago, decided that way would be moving into the e-commerce space. So that's where the company will be heading in the time that I'm not there anymore.
We'll get into that in a second.
I'm sure you will.
But first, when you say e-commerce, what's the plan there? What kind of e-commerce?
Well, e-commerce is, I can barely spell it. E-commerce is a space these days which is online business. So, Pete's massage parlour, there's an opportunity for you. You advertise on Facebook or through vouchers or something. That's e-commerce. You're not buying a shop and opening the front door. You could be doing it at home, or you could be doing it in here. Probably not a massage business, but a lot of these people sitting in this office space would be running their own business. They could be dealing Bitcoin, they could be selling pencils, but that's e-commerce. And if you think about the transition over the past 2 years especially, the coronavirus has certainly accelerated this move to e-commerce. This is where the space is now. If you're going to sell anything these days, are you going to rent a shop in Sukhumvit Road, or are you going to open a Facebook account? I know what you're going to do first. One's going to cost you nothing and give you opportunity. The other one's going to cost you a monthly outlay. So retail is a tough space these days, and the space to sell things is the e-commerce space or the online space. Having said that, if you want to buy a car or buy a shirt, you are still going to want to go and try the shirt on or have a drive of the car. So there is still need for a physical presence for a lot of these brands. But if you're selling retail space or renting it out, that's a tough place to be these days.
So you're leaving the Thaiger?
Yes, I'm leaving the Thaiger. A business I started 6 years ago and have embraced and been very much, I suppose, whether I liked it or not, sort of become the face of the Thaiger. It's now time for me to move on. The board decided last year, as I mentioned, that they're going to move into this e-commerce space. I don't know anything about that. So it's time for younger, smarter, more ambitious people now to take the reins, take what we've developed, and take it in an exciting new direction. Now that's a direction that I was not really able to take it because I didn't have any expertise in e-commerce. It was time for me to stand down. I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to be doing. Obviously, I'll probably start up a YouTube channel. I'll probably do some writing. I have skills. I'm still very healthy. I'm not leaving Thailand. So I might come and be your camera operator. I know how to use a camera.
Yeah, and I'm a one-man band. I need someone else.
Well, you do. You need someone to make your coffee.
That's it.
You need someone to pick your shirts out.
Need some flowery shirts like you.
Oh, don't get into the flowery shirt. As I said, I wore the most boring grey t-shirt I could possibly find to try and get away from those flowery shirts.
But that's your signature. That's what separates you. I think that's great.
I hated them. Yeah, I realised people started talking about, the silly shirts he's wearing. So I thought, okay, do I feed this animal? So I've got this collection in the office of some 30 ridiculous over-the-top shirts. I look like a 70-year-old pedophile, but people wanted me to wear these outrageous shirts, so I kept doing it. But it's not me. I don't walk around with flowery Hawaiian or in Thailand Songkran shirts, so I won't be wearing that in the future.
Let's get back to your leaving, right? Because it did come as a shock to me, because a couple of months ago, 3 months ago actually, you did an interview and you said, I'm going to quote you, "I think I'm going to, in my own mind, keep on being involved in the day-to-day running of the Thaiger for 2 to 5 more years."
Oh, well, that's what I was saying at the time. Look, when you were, at one stage I was the CEO. I was the CEO in total for, 2 or 3 years out of the 4 or 5 years that we've been doing this with the current group of companies. But when you are speaking as the spokesperson for a bigger group, you have to say things sometimes that you don't really necessarily think are true, but you have to try and push the brand in the way that the consumers and the investors are going to appreciate. Now, I think at that time it was my intention to stay with the Thaiger for a period. But in the last few months, it became quite clear to me that I was over it. I was over it from an age point of view. There was some dissension between the people that were on the board and myself about the direction to take the business. And at the end of the day, it's a democratic vote, and they decided they wanted to go in this direction. And I acknowledge that that is the decision of the board, and that is what is going to happen. But it also meant that I had to review my usefulness for the business. How useful am I going to be in this new paradigm? And at 63, you sort of look at things a little bit differently. You have to look at your stress levels, you've got to look at your lifestyle. I am living in a foreign country, so you've got to try and keep your ducks in a row. And if I was 23 or something, you might fight harder or you might do things differently. But at 63, you sort of got to think, I've probably got less years ahead of me than I have behind me. What can I do to... Because it's been very stressful too, generally, growing a fast-growing business like this. It is quite stressful. So at some stage, you've got to think about your own health. And I'm very lucky to have a great little place down in Phuket. I'll go back there and I'll set up an office and I'll get out my typewriter and I'll keep working.
I was going to say, you work 12 to 14-hour days.
Oh, at least.
So it must be stressful.
Well, it's not stressful from the length of hours. I mean, I love working. I really enjoy working, and I've been very happy to put in 7 days a week. I think I've got about 60 days leave up my sleeve, I noticed the other day. So that'll be a good payout at the end of the month. So it's really interesting to look at the amount of hours that I do spend. I get up at 5:30 every morning, religiously, 7 days a week. I go straight into the websites and look at all the news around the world, what's happening. I immerse myself in the news because that's what I'm interested in and what I love. And then I use that body of knowledge to then interpret what's happening here in Thailand, which is what I'm responsible for. But when you are sort of doing the content and running a business with 30 people, there's quite a lot to do besides just pumping out stories. You've got to look after the staff, and you've got to look after the HR, and so-and-so is going to have a day off, and you've got to find a replacement, and this person's having an argument with that, and you've got to keep things peaceful and orderly to have a successful business. And you've got to make sure it's a friendly, happy environment. And so it's not just pumping out the stories or doing spreadsheets. You've actually got to run the business and manage the business. And in Thailand, that takes certain skills, and I've had to learn how to do that better over the time. So, there's quite a lot of stress. And at the end of the day, you take a lot of that home. And then you've got to go through all the comments sections and sort of sift through that and figure out what you're going to do with it. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about.
A question coming up on that, but first,
sure.
Are you happy to leave?
At this stage, now on this day of recording, I've resolved that that's what I'm doing. I'll walk out of the door with a smile on my face. I'll shake everybody's hand. I will sincerely wish them well. Be a little bit sad to go, but just a little bit, because I know that it's a good decision for me. It's a good decision for them. And my happiness in the long term, I know, will be better served by doing this. I'll be poorer, I'll be less frequently stopped in the street, but that's fine. Exactly what I'll do over the next year, I'll figure that out. And hopefully I've accumulated the tools over 63 years to make some good decisions. So I'll be happy for me, the most important person in my life, the cats. I'll be happy.
You come across to me as a survivor. Someone you've probably had to pivot a lot in your career and adapt. Is this not just another step?
Yeah, look, it is. I think if I was a boxer, I'd be a sort of a really scrappy boxer. I wouldn't have the biggest punch, but I'd sort of hold back and run around, and I'd sort of try and
go the distance.
I'd go the distance because I think I am a bit of a survivor. I'll credit my mother for that. She was a hard worker. My father had the sense of humour and the long stories at the dinner table. But my mother, she was the one who had the work ethic, and I certainly realised that I've got her DNA and her good looks. So that's something I need to thank her for. But I don't mind when I go home, mowing the lawn and doing the dishes, and people say, why don't you get a maid, or why don't you get a gardener to cut the lawn? Oh, I like doing things like that. I like feeling busy, and I like standing back and looking at the lawn and going, I did that. I think there's a bit of an Australian thing too, mowing your own lawn. I am a bit of a survivor, and I think I get pleasure from hitting challenges, looking at them front on, not being scared by them, and confronting them, rolling up my sleeves and doing something, learning from my mistakes, admitting when I'm doing something wrong, and doing something about it. I mean, I'll run out of steam at some stage, but I've probably got a few more years in me. Thanks.
Hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
6 months down the line.
You want me to be your co-host?
That's something we could talk about. we'll talk about that. Actually, okay, hypothetical situation, right?
Yes.
Thaiger's viewers drop. The face of the Thaiger is gone. The YouTube views start dropping off. Thaiger come back to you and say, Tim, I need you back.
No, look, firstly, that's not going to happen. At the end of the day, it's a strong brand. It was important at some stage that I step back and let other people come forward. In the last year, we've certainly done that on the YouTube channel with Jay and Natty, Jet, really good young talent who are now stepping up and moving the brand in their own direction. That had to happen at some stage, because I was either going to be hit by a bus or resign or get sacked or whatever. I was one day not going to be part of the Thaiger. So if it didn't happen now, it was going to happen at some stage. So now's the right time for that to happen. Would I go back? Well, I've never sort of gone backwards in my life. I've always gone forwards. I don't want to burn bridges, and I'll walk out, as I said, shaking everybody's hand, and I hope to keep in contact with them, and I will wish everybody there the very, very best for the future. But I've done my time there. I've done my 6 years, and I'll walk out of the front door, and I won't look back. That is part of my journey that I've completed now, and I'll put a nice big tick against that and move on to robbing banks or Tim's massage parlour. I don't know what it's going to be.
Yesterday, I put it to the subscribers. I said, I'm interviewing Tim Newton.
And I said, who's that?
Oh, they know who you are, Tim.
Oh dear.
Yeah, they know who you are. And I said, leave a question, right? So we've got some really good questions here, right? So here's the first one. Yes. Do you find yourself being more guarded about what you can say on your broadcasts in Thailand because of censorship concerns?
That's a great question. Who asked that? You don't know. Okay.
I think that was Ivan.
So, no, it's really interesting. People think, oh, you can't say this and you can't say that. And people say that Thailand doesn't have any freedom of speech. Let me tell you, I've been to a lot of press conferences, and the Thai media are savage when it comes to the Prime Minister and the other ministers, politicians generally. There is a sort of a Thai politeness about the way that they rip shreds off them, but and there are some no-go topics. So, okay, you don't talk about Thailand's head of state and the royal family. Whilst that is largely a no-go area, during the time of the protests, which started in August 2020, anti-government protests. These were the first time the protesters in Thailand, there's been protesters for time immemorial here, but they set out a number of manifesto items that they wanted changed, including changes to the constitution and the way it treated its head of state. So the Thai media started reporting this, and if the Thai media report something, well, then we sort of know that, okay, that's a grey line we can cross. So we reported it as well. When that particular person was travelling back to Germany and back, and people were discussing that, the Thai media were talking about it, social media was talking about it, so we talked about it as well. So some of those barriers have been moved, the grey line's been adjusted, and I think it will continue to adjust. These younger Thais have got topics they want to talk about, and social media gives them a much bigger opportunity to discuss them. I think they're shocking their parents in some ways by talking about some issues. Just have a look at what's happening around Thailand at the moment. They're about to put basically they're changing same-sex laws in regards to marriage. They're changing the Marriage Act in conservative old Thailand. They've decriminalised cannabis use. All this is happening whilst we're speaking. So there are some changes along the way with the freedom of speech and the things that you can and can't talk about. So I've never received a message from a policeman, from a politician, from an authority, from anybody with important letters in front of their name about having to adjust any of our stories. We went pretty hard over the past 12 months on the TAT, the Tourism Authority of Thailand, because their numbers they were publishing were just rubbish, and we started fact-checking them. So, but we never got a phone call from them saying, would you please be nice to us or anything? Although one day I did apply for an interview with Yutesak, the governor, because he was coming to Phuket and we were in Phuket at the time. I thought it would be great to get an interview with him. I had a few questions I'd like to ask him. But their very polite reply was, I'm sorry, the governor won't be available. However, let me get this right, Deputy of Marketing for the South African division of the TAT would be available to talk to you, which I thought was a very polite way of saying.
Okay, here's a very good one, and it's one I can answer as well. I'd like to know how Tim deals with all the insults and offensive comments thrown at him on a daily basis.
All I can say is I take it to heart, and more seriously than I think people think. And I think I could be honest in saying part of the reason I've decided to move on is that I want to move away from the spotlight that I partly created for myself and my views and my reportage of the news, because a lot of it did become particularly nasty. And you have to, as a publisher, and as a person responsible for publishing stuff, including all the comments, you have to make sure that there's nothing libelous or incorrect, or if you leave just falsehoods or false claims, that reflects on your brand. So you have to remove that. You have to audit it. And I didn't cope very well with the direct insults, and some of it hit really hard. And I've always said people say it's a two-way street. Well, it's not really, because you are sitting there doing your program today. Your head's there, your name's under there. People know who you are, and they're sitting behind a faceless username, usually with some sort of fancy name that needs decoding, Hatu-D2 or something. But it's not a two-way street, because they can say anything they like with no ramifications at all. We have to soak it up, and we have to worry about our brand, our loved ones, our mental health, and it does hit home. So yeah, it is hard, and if I keep on doing media in the future, I'm going to have to do it differently, because as soon as you suggest a point of view, as soon as you take a take on a particular side, a left or right in politics or something, you disenfranchise part of your audience and you get attacked by the other half. Or by that half. And then the next day you say, oh, I believe this or that, and you disenfranchise another 50% of your audience. And so it's an ever diminishing wedge of people that like who you are, and the rest just attack you. And because they have absolutely, they can say what they like and they can walk away from their computer and do what they like for the rest of the day. We have to think about it, we have to wear it, we have to read it, we have to process what to do with that. That's been a particularly hard part of the business. And you and I, we've already said we've got different ways of approaching it. Every single YouTuber, every single person with a social media page has to figure out how they're going to cope with the negative commentary.
Okay, so I'll say how I handle it. I have a policy, don't engage, because I just don't see it as beneficial to my time if I argue with strangers on the internet that I'll never meet. So I just don't engage with it, and I would say 99% of the time I'm able to handle it. 1% is, I could be moody, I could wake up and I could see a message I don't like. I want to reply, but nah.
But do you delete it or do you just leave it there?
If it's a personal attack, like, you know, how I look or something like that, I mean, that's just, see,
that was me.
Where I come from, right? I come from Dublin, and I grew up where if someone had a problem, they'd say it to your face.
Sure, same with the Australian attitude. Yeah.
And I've never had anything to my face.
Yeah.
And I walk down Sukhumvit Road and I do get recognised, and it's always positive. I never get anything negative. So yeah, if it's something like that, I delete it. If it's a criticism and a disagreement with an opinion or something like that, sometimes I'll respond, sometimes I won't, but I could just leave it there.
Yeah. I think we've tried that and about 18 other different ways of trying to cope with it over the time. My favourite times was when I came out with some sort of witty retort, and I used to sort of think, that was very clever. But you know, as soon as you've done that, off they go again. And particularly American people don't sort of get sarcasm, and they take it very seriously. That can be difficult. But I've learnt a lot. How I engage with social media, I'll certainly have to think about it twice in the future. My problem was, I suppose, even when they were attacking me, is I was part of a brand. And I always had to respond in a way that was responsible to protect my brand. And that was difficult. But there are people out there, there's, 1-2% of the population who get joy from writing nasty comments on social media. And they don't think that the people at the other end may take some sort of personal aggrievement about those comments, but it may hurt you to the core. And some of the comments did. I mean, not that I sort of cried myself to sleep any nights, but I certainly was kept awake by some of the comments. More often than I'd like to admit. So it hasn't been easy. So yeah, that's a fair comment.
Ask him about his website's long history of plagiarising articles from other news sites such as The Inquirer and Cowsod. Does he like making money off the back of hard work done by other journalists?
Good question. There was a time when we had some writers who, to get to a certain number of articles a day, took the shortcut and did some copying and pasting. That was brought to my attention by Cowsod. That person was no longer working for us about 24 hours after that was brought to my attention, and we put in place processes to make sure that never happened again. Now, our raison d'etre, the whole way that the Thaiger works, is we do rewrite other content that's out there. But we don't plagiarize it. We just use the facts and rewrite those facts with our own words, and sometimes or often using other articles and comparisons, or these people are reporting that, these people are reporting something different, and we'll bring you up to date when we know more. So we did get some criticism from people who wrote that question that we're plagiarizing, but it's not plagiarism. It's basically you can copyright words or a series of words, a paragraph or a sentence, by writing it, but you can't copyright the facts. If you get run over by a bus, that is public knowledge. It's anybody can report that. The words that you use to describe how you got hit by the bus and how you were taken to hospital and stuff, those words are your intellectual property. So I understand that a lot of people thought we were copying and pasting. Well, we weren't. We were never copying and pasting. But some people thought we were taking the short route. We weren't going out to the media conference because the old style of journalism simply wasn't working anymore. And turning articles that long into something that long, and that just gets to the facts in a much more conversational, easy to read manner, I think is a perfectly good way to run a business.
Okay, so we got one more subscriber question.
Oh dear.
It's a bit of a tricky one.
Yeah.
On the surface, the Thaiger broadcasts appear to have a mainstream, objective feel to it. However, Tim and some others regularly interject snarky, subjective comments which abruptly damages their journalistic credibility. I would guess that he does this to get more clicks and therefore more revenue. Does Tim see this, in addition to the plagiarism issue, limiting the potential growth of the Thaiger?
Well, this is more of a comment than a question, I would suggest.
Okay.
Snarky, subjective comments. I was invited to sort of be a bit more direct and share points of view. Probably against my best nature. I'm probably happier just reading the news. The snarky comments, I think, could be also interpreted in some ways, sometimes being humorous or said for a joke effect or sarcastic. I think they come across as snarky. Again, I think a lot of American people see it as snarky, but you and me, with our sort of cultural conversation, I think would understand the sort of the humour. I mean, I think in Ireland you'd say much the same as we do in Australia. If somebody's being nice to you, then they're not a good friend. I mean, friends, they carry on and they give you a hard time, and that means that they like you. From time to time, I do try and push people's buttons. I mean, there were some people who would just respond every day to things. They just loved the sound of their own typing, and sometimes I would say something that I just knew would push their buttons, but that's sort of my job on that particular medium, was to do that. I was there to push people's buttons to get the engagement going. But I think just about everything I said with some honesty, and I didn't do it just to get views, but at the other end of the day, we are a business. I mean, I'm a business person, and my job is to get as many people clicking and buying the odd product from an advertisement. That is what we do.
Okay, I want to move now to the big question.
No comment.
Future plans.
Okay, well, I'm not 100% sure. Look, I will probably start a YouTube channel because it's just all I know what to do. I know the news cycle in Thailand, I know the players, I know the politics, I know the grey lines. I've been buried in the news for the last 6 years on a daily basis, and I know what's happening. So I call myself sort of the reluctant influencer when it comes to news. I've put myself, or I've been put by other people in this box, and they're calling me Tim the news guy. So I'm going to do something with that, but I don't know what.
If you start doing the news, aren't you going to be running in direct competition with the Thaiger?
Well, these are conversations I'm having with the board at the moment, and they, of course, would rather I just sort of move away and wither and die. But at the end of the day, all I know what to do is what I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years. So we'll obviously just have to find some happy medium and move on from there. That's going to be interesting. I can't compete with the Thaiger because it's a very big.
But you could take the news section.
I don't think I could possibly take it.
I guarantee if you start a channel and you start doing news, you'll get people jump from the Thaiger over to you.
Well, I mean, thank you for the compliment, but I probably don't think you're right. I think the Thaiger is much bigger, and it's got 6 years of history and reputation, Google authority, 110,000 subscribers on YouTube. It's got the points on the board. I'd be starting with nothing. But I mean, it's not my intention to go out and start anything in competition with the Thaiger. But inevitably, something I do is going to be somehow similar.
But you have started a channel.
I've got to set up a channel.
What's the name of it?
It's called Tim Newton Today. I thought that was general enough, figuring that my name is all I've got, and my reputation, good or bad, is all I've got. So I had to put my name in there, and putting the word today there, thought, well, I can do that to talk about retirement today, or taking boat trips today, or shopping today. So I just put that on the end of it rather than just calling it Tim Newton. And of course with YouTube you can change the name down the track anyway. But yeah, Tim Newton Today is the name of the channel. I've got no idea what I'm going to be doing on it. I haven't decided.
Right. Well, Tim, it's been a pleasure. I'm going to link your new channel in the description.
Thank you very much.
So go over and check it out. You're going to have some subs. You could have a couple of hundreds already just before you start making any content.
A couple of hundred? Wow. 110,000 to a couple of hundred.
We all have to start somewhere. 0 subs, 0 subscribers. It's a journey. It's a journey.
It's a journey, all right.
Anyway, folks, subscribe to the channel. If you're not already subscribed, hit that like button and leave us a comment. What did you think of the interview? And I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.